Hello everyone, Juxtaposition here. Today's video will be entitled Military Hollywood History Number 8. Number 8. Okay, so let's get started. It's another cavalcade of chaos. Today's video is going to feature Claudette Longet and her singer-dancer husband, Andy Williams, of the Andy Williams Christmas show. And also we're going to explore the relationship with Spider Sabich, a Olympic downhill skier whom Claudette Longet murdered or killed. And we're going to look at her puzzling relationship with her criminal defense lawyer, Ronald D. Austin, who went on a vacation to Mexico, kind of sort of like Ed Durston and Carol Wayne did, only no one got killed. And then she's had a 35-year marriage with her defense lawyer, who was married at the time that they went on their romantic vacation to Mexico after he had her first-degree murder charges reduced to negligent homicide, pay a small fine, and serve 30 days at your leisure and at your convenience, because she was a mommy of 3 children that she had with Andy Williams, and she typically preferred to serve her 30 days on weekends. Be that as it may, you know, that wouldn't take too long, right? 15 weekends and you're done. All right, so where do I begin? I think we should begin with the fact that Andy Williams was integrated into Columbia Broadcasting System. That's where he got his first television show, and then he transferred over to RCA/NBC Television, where he went for almost 10 years with the Andy Williams Show. It's kind of a cookie-cutter show where the host gets to sing songs with the guests. The guests are on a predetermined Hollywood CI list, and the host acts as an impresario, sort of like an Ed Sullivan, except that he participates along in skits and sketches and sings songs with his guests. The guest list, you'll recognize, it's the who's who of every celebrity person who appeared on television during the 1950s and 60s. That's who appeared on the Andy Williams Show. And of course, he met Claudine Longet in Las Vegas outside of the Tropicana Hotel, which is, I've been there, I've stayed there. It's across the street from the Luxor Hotel, you know, the Pyramid. It's also directly across the street where they had that Las Vegas shooting back in 2017, where I believe we had helicopters from above firing down at a country western concert. That's behind the swimming pool at the Tropicana Hotel. And probably on that exact street is where Andy Williams ran into Claudine Longet, because her car was having engine problems. And she's 18 years old, and she's a French, born in Paris, dancer for the review there at the Tropicana. So they make quick friends. He helps her out with her car. He's 32 years old. She's 18 years old. So he's a 14-year-old older man. And this happened sometime in 1960-61. And they go on to get married in 1962. And I would say the rest was bliss, but of course, not on my videos. Let me just give you a little bit of pertinent minutia information regarding Andy Williams. It's very important. Andy Williams was born on December 3rd, 1927. He's a singer. He's recorded 43 albums in his career, 15 of which have been certified gold. He's also been nominated for 6 Grammy Awards. He hosted the Andy Williams Show, which had 2 incarnations, one at CBS for about 4 years, and then later with NBC. His show ran 1962 through 1971. He was married to Claudine Longet during that entire time that his show was on NBC. He was born in Wall Lake, Iowa. His father's name was J. Emerson Williams. His mother was Florence Finley. His father worked as an insurance office and post office administration person. Andy Williams had 3 older brothers. Through singing at the Presbyterian Church Choir, he and his brothers formed a quartet known as the Williams Brothers Quartet. They performed on radio in the Midwest, and they performed in Des Moines, Iowa, and later at WLS Radio in Chicago, Illinois, and also at WLW in Cincinnati, Ohio. Andy Williams moved to Los Angeles in 1943, and he and his 3 older brothers performed for Bing Crosby on his 1944 hit record Swinging on a Star. So they sang on the Bing Crosby record. Bing Crosby was the #1 seller of records in the 1940s, and I believe he's not only the record holder in the 1940s, but he sold more singles than Elvis Presley did. He sold more than the Beatles ever did. So Bing Crosby's #1 when it comes to the two-sided, 2-song disc records. Bing Crosby, #1. And that's really where the Williams brothers got their start. However, because World War II was going on, the eldest brother was drafted into the war, and so now the quartet became a threesome. And let me see, what else can I tell you here? They also sang in a film starring Lauren Bacall, who you know is Jewish, right? Lauren Bacall, who was later married to Humphrey Bogart, a much older man. And they lived in Benedict Canyon, they did. Oh, yes, they did. They lived just above where Anne Margaret lives. They lived on the Enchanted Hillside. Lauren Bacall, a young Jewish woman married to Humphrey Bogart. They lived adjacent to the Enchanted Hillside, which, as you know from watching my videos, is directly above the Sharon Tate murder scene. The Williams brothers were signed to Jewish company MGM, Metro Goldwyn Mayer. They were to appear in Anchors Away and Ziegfeld Follies in 1945. And that is where the eldest brother, Bob Robert, was drafted into military service. The contract with MGM was canceled. However, a MGM former radio star herself, Kay Thompson, swooped in to rescue the boys. She was the head of the vocal department at MGM. She is 19 years older than young Andy Williams. She then sets out to produce them and has a romantic relationship with young Andy when he's 19 years old and she's 38 years old. Kay Thompson, who's Jewish, and she runs the vocal department at MGM. So she's having a sexual relations with Andy Williams, and then she puts together a show for live performances where she's the star of the show. It becomes Kay Thompson and the Williams brothers, which is now a threesome. And it's a quartet when you add Kay Thompson, who's much older than the boys. It's all very interesting, isn't it? So then they produce a song, Moon River and Me, and this made Kay Thompson very rekindled her contract because she was working behind the scenes, and this put her out on the stage. So she's having a romantic relationship with Andy Williams, who's only 19 years old, and this act breaks up in 1949. However, because of Kay Thompson's contacts, she's able to rekindle a television show as TV becomes more prominent. And she helps Andy Williams develop a Christmas album leading to a replacement show on CBS, The Evil Masonic Eye. And of course, Andy Williams also stars on to The Tonight Show, which is NBC property, when Steve Allen was the host, before Johnny Carson. And before Steve Allen, I believe we had Allen Parr, or Jack Parr. We had Jack Parr, then we had Steve Allen, and then we had Johnny Carson, and after that, who cares, right? So this Kay Thompson really was the control agent for the Williams boys, but she's sleeping with Andy Williams. He then gets a replacement television show for CBS for 1957, 58, and 59. And he's traveling the United States with Kay Thompson during the summer of 1961. And Kay Thompson is getting paid as an executive producer. She's also getting paid as his singing coach, and she's sleeping with him too. So it's a financial arrangement, it's a romantic sexual relationship, and everything was going really well, for over 10 years until Claudine Longet broke down her car behind the Tropicana Hotel there in Las Vegas. And then the wheels came off, not just Claudine Longet's car, but Andy Williams' relationship with Kay Thompson went bye-bye. And she moved to Rome, Italy. She left the country. And she was gone and did not attend the wedding for Andy Williams and Claudine Longet. And when you get a TV deal with CBS, you also sign a records contract with Columbia Records, because that's owned by the clandestine CBS Masonic Evil Eye, right? Trying to look here for the date of the marriage. So Claudine, I want to call her Claudette because I just want to, but it's Claudine Longet. And she was a dancer when she was 17 and 18 years old in Las Vegas for the Folies Bergère. And she was married to Andy Williams December 15th, 1961. And over the next 8 years, they had three children: Noel, Christian, and Robert. Noel, 1963. And then Christian, who sadly, he died at age 23. I believe he died, Christian died in 2019. And Robert, I believe he passed away early also. Anyway, it's kind of a tragic story of the children of the Andy Williams and Claudine union. All right, so they have a marriage that runs from 1961 up until 1974, I believe it is. I'm trying to find the beat here. Oh, well, before that, let me just stay in the 1960s. Andy Williams, of course, becomes very involved with the Kennedy family, and in particular after the John Kennedy assassination, after the birth of Noel. Noel Williams was born like 2 months before the Jack Kennedy assassination in 1963. So anyway, they became close friends with Robert F. Kennedy and his wife Ethel, and he campaigned for the Kennedys during 1968 Democratic presidential primaries, which, as you know, culminated out in California with Robert Kennedy staying overnight with John Frankenheimer at the Malibu Gated Colony, which, if you watch my channels, that's a CIA prison camp. And Robert Kennedy had dinner with Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski, I believe Sunday night, which would have been June 2nd, 1968. And he was driven to the Ambassador Hotel reluctantly by John Frankenheimer in his Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud III car, which would have taken an hour drive, past Charlie Miles Maddox at 14400 Sunset Boulevard, Pacific Palisades, and then they would have driven another 30 minutes to get to the hotel, whereupon he was murdered by Thane Eugene Caesar a little after midnight on June 5th, 1968. That's a Wednesday morning, but it was a Tuesday. It was primary Tuesday, was the victory for his Democratic primary. So on to Chicago, and we'll win there, I believe were his last words spoken. And Claudine and Andy Williams were on the fifth floor penthouse rooms where the Kennedy entourage was at the Ambassador Hotel. They weren't down in the ballroom. They were upstairs on the 5th floor. And when the speech was over and Robert Kennedy was directed into the pantry kitchen area, the story goes that Andy Williams was making his way down the elevator to the ground floor, and when he exited the elevator, he heard shots or heard commotions, pandemonium, and learned that the senator from New York had been shot, allegedly by Sirhan Sirhan, which of course is total poppycock. Yes, Sirhan Sirhan was there. Between 8 and 13 shots were fired. The pistol holds 9 bullets. But Thane Eugene Caesar shot once, and probably one time only, right here into his right ear. And he was the security guard employed by the Ambassador Hotel for that night only. And he's a full-time employee for Lockheed Skunk Works division in Burbank. And so he's not really a security guard. What he is a Manchurian candidate assassin. That's what Thane Eugene Caesar is. And it only takes one shot if you're a professional and you've been practicing. In other words, it's not your first rodeo, you practiced. Anyway, I find it more than ironic that John Frankenheimer drove Robert Kennedy to his death in a silver Cloud III Rolls Royce. I find it troubling that Andy Williams and Claudine Longet were present for this execution murder, which is obviously part of the Hollywood cult. It's very political assassination. And I find it troubling, of course, that Bill Epridge, who is a professional photographer, was there to take all the photographs that you saw in Time Life magazine that looked like a crucifixion with Ethel Kennedy, crying over her dying husband. And that's all captured on film by Bill Epridge. All right? All designed to focus hatred on Sirhan Sirhan, who I believe stands 5'2.5", the same height as Charles Miles Maddox stands 5'2.5". Same height as William Calley, who we didn't know anything about William Calley yet. Later he goes on to become blamed the scapegoat for the My Lai massacre as a second lieutenant when Captain Medina he's acquitted of the murders of 504 people, and they convict a 5'2.5" scapegoat, William Calley. Do you see a pattern here? Sirhan Sirhan, Charles Miles Maddox Manson, William Calley, they're all 5'2.5", and they're all demonized as the murderers. Isn't that interesting? And there's Andy Williams hosting his Christmas show, and he's hanging out with Robert Kennedy and Ethel. Of course, they attend the funeral, and Bill Epridge, of course, goes back to New York, and he takes photographs of the funeral in New York and at the Arlington Cemetery, and really just memorializes the whole Robert F. Kennedy assassination. And there he is. And this is exactly to a T what they had done with James Dean, because as you remember, James Dean was murdered on September 30th, 1955 in his brand new Porsche Spider race car when, if you'll believe it, a 23-year-old United States Navy veteran, Donald Turnipseed, pulls in front of him on a three-way Y intersection, causing James Dean to have to swerve to the left and then flip his car, allegedly. There are really no witnesses to that James Dean crash, but I will tell you that there's a Jewish man from Brooklyn, New York, Sanford H. Roth, professional photographer, and supposedly he's driving the Ford Country Squire station wagon with the empty trailer that the Porsche Spider goes on. And he pulls over, he starts taking photographs of the destroyed wreckage of the Porsche Spider. Remember that name, Spider. James Dean, he's dead as a doornail, and he's dead as a doornail at 5:45 p.m., September 30th, 1955. And there's Sanford H. Roth, the Jewish man from Brooklyn, New York, who works for Paris Match, Time Life, Look, Vogue, and People magazine, and he's taken photographs of the wreckage. That's the photos that you see. They were taken by Sanford H. Roth, a Jewish man from Brooklyn who works for the CIA magazines, Time Life, Look, Vogue, People, and Paris Match. And he's taken photographs of the destroyed Porsche Spider and the dead James Dean, age 24. Then, we come out to 1968 and we have Bill Epperidge photographing the assassination of Robert F. Kennedy. There he is. And then, not very long later, on March 23rd, 1969, we have CIA photographer from Iran, Sharak Hatami, and he is taking the Sharon Tate photographs at the Cielo Drive military crime scene. There he is, and Sharon Tate is duplicating the Michelle Morgan photos that were taken in 1945 around the same time of year. And there's Sharak Hatami memorializing Sharon Tate to create the illusion that she lives on that property when she's never slept over there ever in her life. He's 41 years old and Sharon Tate is 26 years old. Bill Epperidge, I'm not sure what his age was at the time of Robert Kennedy's murder, but I can tell you that Sirhan was 24 years old. Donald Turnipseed, the scapegoat for James Dean, was 23 years old, and Charlie Miles Maddox was 32 years old, and he was the scapegoat for Sharon Tate, who was 26 years old, and Abigail Folgers, 25 years old. And Sharak Hatami was 41 years old when he took those deceptive photographs of Sharon Tate. And Stanford Roth was 49 years old when he took those photographs of James Dean. Anyway, so Claudine and Andy Williams get divorced in 1975, but not before she found a boyfriend. Of course, she links up with Spider Sabich, spelled Sabich, and he's really was born in Sacramento, California, and learned to ski at Squaw Valley and Heavenly Valley up the road from Sacramento and Khyber's Pass. So he's really a local, but he is a Croatian. His parents are immigrants from Croatia. And he's a good athlete, and he meets Andy Williams and Claudette, because they skied up in Aspen, and he taught skiing up there. He finished 5th place in the alpine skiing at the 1968 Olympic Games. He's younger than Claudine, of course, not much younger, he's a few years younger. Anyway, they get real involved, and Claudine moves in with Spider Sabich, or often spends her nights with him in his home in Aspen. You should know that Don Johnson and Hunter S. Thompson and Dakota Johnson, they live 8 miles away in a place called Woody Creek. Woody Creek is 8 miles north of Aspen, Colorado. Aspen is home to CIA activities, of course. It's home to operatives and meetings, and One World Order presentations are done oftentimes there or at other locations in Flat, I'm trying to think, in Montana, Flat Lake, Montana, Whitefish, Montana area, Glacier National Park. They meet in these remote, beautiful places and settings in Colorado and Montana. Anyway, wanted to tell you that, Dakota Johnson is 33 years old this year, so really want her to mind her P's and Q's. Her birthday is October 4th. That is a scary date. That is the date that Art Linklater's daughter Diane was thrown out of her window from the Shoreham Towers on October 4th. 1969, 2 months after Sharon Tate went bye-bye. And of course, October 4th is when Janis Joplin was murdered in room 105 at the Landmark Hotel at 7047 Franklin Avenue next to the Magic Castle. Janis Joplin was murdered in her room 105 on October 4th, 1970. So Dakota Johnson, I want you to be extra careful when we get up to October 4th this year, because you'll be turning 34 years old, and it will be the last opportunity for something crazy to happen to you. If you can just get past October 4th, 2023, I think you've got it made. I'm not kidding around. You study these cases, you will see the number 33 appears, the number 666, the number 999, and you'll see all kinds of crazy relationships between politicians, military, military parents, murder, M7 bayonets, unexplained murders, and suicides. And of course, you'll have lots of chaotic poppycock cover stories. All right, so let's move on to Spider Sabich. He's the grandson of Croatian immigrants. He was the second child of Francis Sabich and Vladimir. His name technically is Vladimir Spider Sabich. I just think it's interesting that his middle name is the same name of James Dean's sports car, where he was destroyed and killed in that sports car, Porsche Spider. So you got a Porsche Spider and you got Spider Sabich. Anyway, what you should know is that as the story goes, on a late afternoon of Sunday, March 21st, 1976, so just shortly after her divorce was finalized with Andy Williams, surely she was dating Spider Sabich before this. Spider Sabich was born on January 10th, 1945, so he's every bit of 3 years younger than Claudine. So Claudine is 32 years old, I believe. No, she's 34 years old. I believe Claudine is 34 years old. And Spider Sabich is 31 years old. Anyway, he's in his bathroom in his Aspen, Colorado home. And Claudine comes in to ask him how to use a pistol. Now, this is kind of a comedy because the pistol is discharged from a distance of over 6 feet away. So I don't know how you can demonstrate how to use a pistol from 6 feet away from the shooter. The other thing that's bizarre is that I knew at age 4 how to use a squirt gun, so I didn't really need to have someone tell me how to use a pistol. You aim it and you squeeze the trigger. I mean, what is it you need tutorial on, right? Also, this pistol is kind of got some mechanical problems, and you have to double and triple squeeze that trigger. It's like the safety is stuck on it. So the idea that it would accidentally go off, which was what her defense lawyer said in court, it was an accident, and it was happening whilst Spider was educating Claudine how to use the pistol, and it accidentally went off. So I'm here to tell you it's virtually impossible for any pistol to accidentally go off. They do go off when you're very deliberative, however. All right, so anyway, she's a Hollywood star, and she was married to, Andy Williams for 14 years. So, she's kind of plugged into the network. Anyway, she goes off to the hospital with Spider, to the Aspen hospital there, and of course he dies on the way to Aspen Valley Hospital and declared dead shortly after 5 p.m. again on March 21st, 1976. Okay, and Spider Sabich was 31 years old in 2 months. Okay, Spider Sabich is buried in Placerville, California. They couldn't bury him in his hometown of Kybers because they don't have a cemetery. That's actually not very far away from, in case you haven't watched my video on Leonard Lake and Charles Ng in Woolseyville, that's not that far away from where Spider Sabich is buried in Placerville. Just take Highway 49 south from Placerville. It'll take you right on down to where Woolseyville is and where the clandestine service United States Marines, Leonard Lake and Charles Ng, disappeared 25 people. They only dug up and found, I believe, 11. So we got 14 people that are still missing. The other thing that's peculiar about the Claudine Williams Longet story is, of course, Dominic Dunn gets all over this thing and helps produce a television movie, Dominic Dunn's Power, Privilege, and Justice series. This story appears on that. And whenever Dominic Dunn covers the Menendez case or covers the O.J. Simpson case or covers the Spider Savage murder, that means that's code for clandestine services. He works for CIA. Dominic Dunn, his brother John Dunn, his sister-in-law Joan Didion, they all work for CIA. Okay? That's Time, Life, that's Look Magazine, that's Vogue, that's CIA. Okay? So something stinks about this this murder, because that's what I'm going to call it. Now, of course, at the trial, because she's a celebrity, the story was that it was an accident, and Spider was trying to explain how to use the pistol, and it went off, and he died. And the jury believed it. The jury believed that story because Claudine is very attractive. You know, she starred with Peter Sellers. She co-starred with Peter Sellers in 1968 in a Hollywood film called The Party. Carol Wayne also appears in that film. It's a campy, zany, Peter Sellers-centric film where he gets to portray his awkwardness and plays a Indian. He plays an Indian gentleman who ends up at a Hollywood party and makes many faux pas. It's kind of like a version of The Laugh-In. But anyway, Claudine is a co-star status of that film. Carol Wayne is just a bit partner. But isn't it interesting that Peter Sellers is the star of The Party in 1968, and Peter Sellers dies of a heart attack in London at the Dorchester Hotel on July 24th, 1980. He has the heart attack on Wednesday, July 23rd, 1980. Now, I've stayed one block away at the Grand Sheraton Hotel, which is one block from where Peter Sellers died. And, of course, it's 2 blocks from where Cass Elliot was murdered, you know, at number 9 Corzine Lane. That's right next door to where Peter Sellers died. That's where Keith Moon died. So Peter Sellers died within 2 blocks of Keith Moon. Cass Elliot, who's Jewish, and she's from Baltimore, Maryland, Navy military town, and her real name is Ellen Naomi Cohen. And she lived in the Natalie Wood property at 7708 Woodrow Wilson Drive. And she was murdered while she was having lunch, eating a chicken sandwich. And guess what? Peter Sellers had a heart attack and died whilst eating lunch on Wednesday, July 23rd, 1980. I think he was murdered. I think Peter Sellers was murdered in the exact same manner that Cass Elliot was murdered. And Peter Sellers appeared in the film The Party. And Carol Wayne appeared in The Party, and she's murdered and drowned on January 13th, 1985. Right? Right. She's 42 years old. Peter Sellers is 54 years old. And Claudine doesn't die, but she kills her boyfriend. She tells the police, the sheriff's department, that everything was fine in the relationship, but they take her diary, and then there she's made many ad hominem attacks toward Spider Savage. So it sounds like they were breaking up based on the diary, but they took the diary without getting a warrant, so that was not admitted into evidence. Also, they took a blood sample from Claudine, and she had cocaine in her blood system. They didn't have a warrant for that, so that also was suppressed from the jury. And they were left with going over the autopsy medical exam showing the trajectory of the bullet and that it had to be shot from about 6 feet away. Anyway, the jury nullified the murder one homicide, and they changed it instead into negligent homicide, which I believe is a misdemeanor, and she did 30 days in the jail, which she could serve at her leisure. She got to pick the days. She could pick whatever day she wanted, and I guess just go to the local jail and check in, do a sleepover. She had to do 30 sleepover nights. She also had to pay a small fine. So no harm, no foul. She continues to be friends with Andy Williams despite this little faux pas. All right, so what have we learned from my videos? We learned that there's always a photographer nearby so that you can see your photographs. They did have hundreds of photographs at My Lai. We've only seen a dozen, so we didn't get them all. I'm pretty confident that the Sharon Tate, Abigail Folger murders, there must be thousands of video and film. I believe that was filmed, videoed, and we have seen none of it. We've seen none of it. And I believe that the John Kennedy and the John Kennedy assassinations were well videotaped as well, but we don't get to see the actual videos. The Zapruder film is a complete mendacity, and it has little to no value whatsoever. It won't show you the trajectory of the kill shot, which is head on from the triple underpass. So just forget about it. We don't have that. Information is suppressed. You're not going to find it on an Oliver Stone dramatized version of reality. You're not going to find anything remotely associated with what really happened in a Hollywood produced film. Period. End of story. All right, so that's my part 8, military Hollywood history. Hope you enjoyed it. It involves the Robert Kennedy assassination, Claudine Longet, Andy Williams, Peter Sellers, and Carol Wayne. And as Randy Quaid recently said, there is a Hollywood star whackers team out there that goes around murdering Hollywood stars. And Randy Quaid lives in fear. He wants to live outside the United States. He's afraid he's going to get whacked by the Hollywood military complex, which he refers to as the star whackers. We just had the Academy Awards, which, in case you didn't know, that's right across the street from where Charlie Manson had an apartment. That's where Charlie Watson had an apartment. That's where Janis Joplin was murdered, directly across the street within 250 feet from where you saw the awards presented. It's funny, they just won't take the camera and just walk right around the corner and show you where Janis Joplin was murdered, back on October 4th, 1970. They won't take you to where Bernard Crowe was making false identifications, working for the CIA, 250 feet away from where the award presentation is. Just extraordinary. I call that concealment. Okay, thanks for listening. Have a great day. We'll talk soon.